Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth lecture of Paraspar Sutradhar series, organized by the Office of Communications, Indian Institute of Science. In this series, we invite speakers to share stories of how they dealt with the ups and downs in life and take us through their journeys into academia and beyond. Today, we have Anagh Purandare, who is currently working as a teacher at the Ajim Premji School located within the Ajim Premji University campus. Previously, he has worked as a teacher at Rishi Valley School, Madanapalle, and as senior education specialist at Educational Initiative. Anagh, we welcome you.
Thank you.
For facilitating better discussion, we have introduced a discussion in this series. Our colleague, Dr. Narmada Khare, will initiate the discussion after Anagh finishes his talk. Post the discussion, it will be open for the audience Q&A. Anagh, may I now request you to give your talk?
Yeah, thanks, Desta, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I'll have a brief conversation. I didn't make a presentation because I was not sure what to put on the slides. It might help because I have just gone through as a teacher on an online mode, talking in a blank screen. So it might help if some of you don't mind switching on your camera. So at least I have some faces to see through. It'll just help. It's not compulsory. It might help. Yeah, so I will request if you can keep your cameras on, it will be nice. Because otherwise it's just I'm talking in a blank screen, which I have been doing it for last 2 years. Hi, I'm Anagh. And I am, as Bethesda said, I'm teacher right now at Ajim Premji School. Today I thought I'll briefly talk about what my journey was, and as a title, as I said, why quitting PhD was a sensible decision for me. And there are important parts to that statement. Sensible for me is a very important part there. I am not saying that everybody should start quitting PhD left, right, center. Neither I'm saying that it is a sensible decision for everybody if they decide to quit. So this is more of a personal take on my journey. A word of caution, I'm looking back at those years, which has happened around 10 to 12 years ago. So it is mixed with what I thought might have happened, or I wished what might happen, combined with some reality. So it is my perspective of what has happened for last 10, 12 years. And just before that, when I took a decision of quitting PhD. So I was doing PhD at National Center for Biological Sciences. And after 3.5 years, I quit without completing it. And it was not a simple decision for me. It was not a simple decision for various reasons. One, I had high expectations for myself, and others had high expectations for me. Others included family and teachers to do something in research. To just give you a small background, I had decided to join pure science against medical admission, and the town where I grew up in, it was not a very common thing to do, where people would spend a couple of years trying to get into medical admission. And because of that, there was, I think when I look back now, there was already a subconscious pressure on me to do something in research. So I joined my BSc in one of the colleges in Pune, Garware College. And it's a very nice, good course where I learned a lot. I met some of the closest friends of mine during that time. And I was fortunate enough to encounter teachers who were quite insightful in bringing out different aspects of teaching. This is important in retrospect when I start looking back at how it has helped me as a teacher at present. After that, as Norm suggests, I started doing my master's immediately after finishing my BSc in MS University, Baroda. And generally, the trajectory of anybody who starts on this path is to complete BSc, MSc, and have to join a PhD. At that point, I was not very convinced that I want to do PhD. And because of that, I didn't apply to most of the programs in India. I was anyway not very keen on going abroad. I thought I should take a break 1 year, do maybe join as a JRF somewhere, junior research fellow, and gain some experience about research before doing PhD. But that doubt was not very strong, and clearly I didn't act upon that doubt in time. And the only place I applied or happened to apply was NCBS, and luckily I got through the program. And at that time, I remember this incident particularly because I was wondering, I was standing in one of the corridors in NCBS and I was wondering whether should I join or not. And that time, NCBS director Vijay, he walked around and he was just having a casual conversation. And I told him that I have doubts, might not want to join immediately. And he said, there is no harm, you join and then you can quit if you don't like it. And I thought, okay, if the institute director is saying this, there is no harm joining a PhD program and then quitting. But it's easy for Vijay to say you can quit, but it's not so easy it was not very easy for me to quit, because once I joined the program, it was quite a nice life. You have your independence, you get some fellowship, you're meeting interesting people across, coming from different parts of the country, who are also interested in science. You are at an institute which has lots of facilities and freedom. So that doubt actually was buried between all this jargon of doing multiple things. And so I never acted upon that doubt. I continued working I moved with the flow, what was happening. I finished coursework which is needed. I failed some courses, I passed some courses. After 2.5 years, I had to appear for a qualifying exam, and at that time, I realized I have done so many other things except the work on my PhD, or the topic which I was supposed to defend as a PhD topic, and that was a starting point for also a mental crisis I was going through, because it raised a lot of questions in my head. I was doubting myself, whether I was good enough. And I'm sure most of the academia is filled with those doubts. But those doubts, along with my original doubt that I might not want to do PhD, really threw me off the path, and I think started to avoid work, started to avoid meeting friends. I was just staying in my room most of the time. Fortunately, during those first 2.5 years when I didn't invest in my PhD work, I definitely invested in friends and friendships, and those friends helped me point out that there is a issue which I'm going through. There is a problem I'm going through, and I'm not facing it head on. And when they pointed out to me, I think I had a realization that I don't want to continue this way. There is no point saying I'm doing PhD and not showing up in the lab for multiple days and weeks together. And then I realized I think I should quit my decision. So of course at that point of time, it was more of a relief that I am quitting my PhD and I'm not putting everybody else under the same tension, worries for me about my work, about the project. But I also think in retrospect, it was a good decision I took. It is a sensible decision I took, as I said in title. And the reason for that is those 2.5 years definitely were a fruitful addition to my experiences as an individual who I am today. I met some of the incredible people who are my close friends now. I thought about issues which I wouldn't have thought about otherwise if I had just started, say, teaching, if what I'm doing right now, immediately after my master's. It wouldn't have allowed my thought process to mature as it is mature, in a way it is matured today. And because of that, I think those 2.5 years have been a very important, traumatic little bit, but very important years of my life. So after I quit my PhD, I during that time when I was deciding I had to quit, I realized I do enjoy explaining things to others, especially people who are joining the lab, who are doing summer internship, and etc. And maybe I thought I should give it a try for a teaching. Now, of course, I had to say that it's now, given that I've been in education sector for last 10 years, I was extremely privileged to be able to join some college for teaching and learn many of the skills which are needed as a teacher on the go. But I am aware that this is not the privilege available for everybody. A, in terms of freedom, and B, in terms of skill set already available or allowed to develop through the job. But because of that privilege, I was able to learn. I could try teaching at college level first, then I tried at an experimental school afterwards. And over those years, I realized I really not only enjoy teaching, I'm able to think from the students' point of view what students might need in terms of understanding a particular concept. I teach biology and science, and I'm able to connect with the students to be able to give them the insights which I have gained over my education years. And because of that, over like for after 2 years, I realized I want to be in education and I want to be teacher. Of course, teachers in India are not paid that well. So the first school I taught was paying me some 2,500 rupees per month, which is not enough for doing anything in life. And hence I had switched my gears to a private company called Education Initiatives, where I was developing assessment and trying to get insight of how students are thinking. But other than that, I think as a journey, as a teacher, I feel teaching has been something which I look forward to each day, which I was definitely not doing for my PhD or the project. I don't feel that I am overworking, although I end up working 8 to 10 hours towards something within the teaching, which I was not doing for my PhD. And because of these two factors mainly, I think it was a good that I left my PhD. Because if I had completed my PhD, the same pressures or same incentives which led me to join PhD at the first place after MSc would have led me to continue in academia and do postdoc, and then continue doing postdoc and maybe become then chances are very low, but follow the trajectory of an academic life, which probably would have made me much more miserable even if I completed my PhD. So that's the reason I think it's a sensible decision for me to leave my PhD at that time. And yeah, I think I more or less said both things. I think it's 15 minutes are over. I think I can stop here, and maybe we can have the conversation, Namrata. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Anagh. Thanks for your talk. And I'll just ask you a few questions to get the conversation.
Sure.
So, you said that you had not particularly decided what you wanted to do for your. But then, how did you train yourself? Because teaching is, though it may be intuitive to some people, it is something that definitely improves with some training and learning from teachers. How did you have any good teachers in your life, and how did you train yourself and prepare for the next stage in your life?
So, to give a one-word answer, I'll say privilege. But that privilege has multiple layers in it. One, definitely, I was privileged enough to go to colleges which had teachers who thought differently about teaching, both at my undergraduate level and postgraduate level specifically. But even when I look back, even at my school level, there were enough, one or two teachers among many teachers who have taught me had thought about teaching differently. That definitely helped in me thinking about teaching for myself. That's one. B, so I think one of the key aspects of being a teacher is to have both detailed knowledge of a content as well as the broader view of how a particular topic subject is. And both my undergraduate, postgraduate, and the years I spent at during my PhD had helped me at both these scales. The detailed nitty-gritties of the content knowledge which I am supposed to teach, and a broader view of looking at how does that knowledge fits in the bigger picture of human endeavor. And I think these both uh, allowed me to experiment with the teaching methodology because the content part was there. I could play around with, I didn't have to study content. I had to work on the pedagogy or the how I teach method part more. That's one part. Second part, because I was in both my initial first two teaching jobs were in a places where there were no high stakes. I didn't have to prepare students for ultimate university exam or a board exam. So that allowed me and the students to bear with the freedom I had to try out with it, both at the institution level, at the student level, as an individual teacher level. Which again, it's a very valuable 2 years which allow a teacher to try out few different methods till a teacher figures out what they want to, how they want to go ahead. So so I would say some academic training definitely helped, but the allowing the freedom at the first initial jobs definitely helped me further to develop skills as a teacher.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anagh, getting into a PhD program at NCBS is very tough, and I guess in India it is considered a great privilege. You got in, and then after having spent some time working at it, you decided to quit. So you must have had to explain this to several people, right? Including family, friends, but more importantly, future employees. Uh, I guess since you did not remain in research, you did not probably need recommendation letters from the people you work with, but still you would have had some questions about your decision. How did you handle those questions?
I think in many of these cases, being honest has been very helpful for me. So every interview when this question comes, why I quit my PhD, I essentially summarize what I spoke earlier, and which is that I don't think I was cut out for research, but I was interested in doing research, and hence I didn't see a point continuing research. So yes, I had to explain. So every interview this question definitely comes because it is there in my CV. But it is easier to explain to future employers because, again, I am also privileged enough to be able to stand up and explain my stance and have a choices of rejecting when the employers don't show inclination of listening to my experiences. If particular employer does not seem to get doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, why I quit my PhD, I don't think I'll be able to work with that employer. Fortunately, I didn't have to meet so many employers like that. All the employers so far I have worked with were understanding of the situation, both at the institution level and as an individual level, what it might be. So that was again a privilege from that one. Yet, as comes to friends have been very supportive of the decision before, after, during. So I didn't have to explain a lot to my friends. But family, I'm still explaining, and I don't think that is going to go anywhere, because somehow, especially if you have family who does not have a background in science academia, the workings of science academia is very hard to explain, and how it is very hard to them to see why it is not possible or why it could be a problem. So some of the reasons of my quitting PhD were partly systemic and mostly personal, but there were also systemic issues which I can't explain. I'm trying to explain to multiple of my family members, but there is always one person who will say why. I think you should continue, because PhD has such a zeal in our society that people think that you have to have PhD when you had got a chance to do it. And as you said, NCBS, they just find it even more harder to decide that.
I'm just going to request you to put yourself in the shoes of younger PhD students who may be doing PhDs today. Maybe they are also at a stage where they have spent a few years, they have given years of then still not convinced that they're in the right direction. What do you think, not as a person who will actually sit and maybe make lists of what should be the reasons why I'm quitting, not just that.
I think
should be their concerns that they decide, that they think of before deciding to leave.
So your voice was a little bit breaking, Narmada, but let me just repeat the question what you asked, and let's correct me if I am not got it right. You are asking me what should a student who is right now going through the PhD and maybe a mini crisis or a major crisis, which makes that student question whether that he or she or they should continue on the PhD program, what should they do, or what should they think, right? That's what you asked.
Yeah. What are the things they should definitely think about clearly before they take the major step of leaving?
See, okay, so if I had made that list why I should quit PhD, just the list, I would have had multiple reasons at that time when I took a decision of quitting PhD, because most likely a person who is questioning after joining a PhD program would be going through a mini crisis of identity, doubting oneself, maybe even depression like me at that point. And in that circumstances, that list will be, you can make a much longer list of reasons to quit, because you're already looking for excuses to quit. But one of the things which I didn't do, and I could have done differently, was, and I should have done that earlier before even I joined PhD program, is I could have asked why I want to do PhD. And generally we don't ask that question, why I want to do PhD. I didn't ask that question when I joined. And even if a person who is right now in the PhD program and can still ask that question, why they want to do PhD. And the reasons could be anything. You don't have to justify reasons to anybody else except themselves. The reasons could be, I just want to answer the question which I'm interested in. The reason could be, I want to get a doctorate in front of my name. Reason could be, I want to earn more money, and which is possible only if I finish my doctorate. Or reason could be, I just want to get out of this institute with a degree with my hand. It could be any reason. But the problem is that if we don't have that reason, it's very hard to see through that crisis. It could be crisis which will lead you to continue PhD, but the clarity might lead you to continue PhD and finish it, or at least take a decision that, okay, I think I need to stop, take a break and not continue PhD. But those questions, the reasons why I need to do PhD is never asked. I didn't ask very clearly at that point. and it had to be go through a mental crisis to realize that okay, this is not something I want to continue. So in retrospect, I would think I should have done that, and if somebody else also is feeling the same, I would say maybe it's a worthwhile exercise, and doing that exercise maybe with few close friends helps. It's just that because few close friends will allow you to see some of the things which you might not fully see.
So I'll ask you one last question, I think, before I can hand it over to the audience. So,
Sure.
as a school teacher,
Mm.
you will want to you identify as a school teacher now.
Mm.
As a school teacher, particularly at Azim Premji,
Mm.
you have seen students from all walks of lives.
Mm.
So they come from several different strata of the society. And suppose there is an underprivileged student in a similar situation as yours, the one that you faced during PhD. Are there any avenues that he can or she can or they can search that will help them make this decision, or either way, decision to leave or decision to stay? As an underprivileged student, what are their chances of getting good advice, and who should they approach?
I find it's very hard for me to answer that question because I am extremely privileged, and that privilege is blinding. You don't even understand. I don't even understand what all my doubts a person might go through simply because of not. I was lucky to go to college which had a teacher who thought alternatively. When I meet other some master students and other some of the friends, that itself is a very privileged position. Most of the undergraduate courses in India do not have teachers who are thinking outside what they can do, and so it's very hard for me to put myself in that shoes because of that blindness which privilege is giving me. But one thing I think everybody can have is to have some alternate skill development throughout the PhD program, and those did not even for continuing in academia. There are certain skills which most of the PhD programs don't include. Like most of the PhD programs take it for granted that you will figure it on your own, and there is no systemic way of addressing, developing, building those skills as an individual. Like handling data and coding is just assume that you will manage on your own. There is no systemic way of handling that. Ability to think quantitatively is not partly systematically taught at PhD program. It's assumed that your master program would have done it, right? Conceptual clarity is, we take it for granted at PhD level. It's not there at undergraduate level, at master's level, at a school level, and something like that. Recognizing what a concept gaps I might have as an individual, recognizing what skill gaps I might have compared to others who I see around, whether they are from privileged or underprivileged background. When I come to a place which has different people from different backgrounds, one of the thing it allows me to reflect on myself is what skills and content I don't have, what others have, or other mean even one person has. And then if I think that is valuable for me to in life, I had to work on it. So the sad part is it's an individual journey right now. There is no systemic support for any of these aspects. Ideally, if you can come together as friends and seek out help, I'm sure there are enough people who are interested in helping out by conducting workshops or having this conversation like these. Could be avenues where people who will be interested in developing those skills. But other than that, I don't know whether I am the right person to talk about a person who is not has a similar background as me. It's just because it's blinding. I don't know fully. I don't understand enough of what not having privilege might cause. It's a theoretical understanding, and it won't help. It will not be sensible for me to answer beyond that.
Thank you, Anagh.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can now open it to the audience. Whoever has a question can raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat box. We can read it out. Yeah, Chandrima, please go ahead. Ask your question.
So Anagh, I have seen you through that journey when you were making that decision.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, how did you take care of the imposter syndrome yourself? You know, what were the things that really helped you go through this phase? I mean, I understand that friends are important, but there may have been certain things which were probably very important to you as an individual, which helped you kind of map this journey better. And second thing is, as a teacher, especially when you're talking to school students and you're teaching them, what are the kind of things that you need to do on a daily basis to kind of have their enthusiasm, you know, the enthusiasm to that level where they maintain that interest in your class?
So there are
two very
things.
Different questions.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The first, hi, by the way, Chandrima. The first question, see, I am looking back at journey in retrospect after 10 to 12 years. And I don't think I had so much clarity at that time when I took the decision. But the decision was necessary at that time. So I would say the decision was necessary at that time and sensible when I look back after 10, 12 years. So it was not a very charted out or mapped out journey, as it might seem when I am describing the journey now. See, one of the things which happens for a person who, like me, who's privileged in our current society, is that I started so in the college and in both the colleges, BSc and Masters, I got a sense that I am among the 10% of the class, and that builds in a false sense of my abilities. And when I joined a PhD program where many such 10% people are coming together, whether it's by design or by filtering process or whichever the reason, but that's end product is that. That suddenly leads to a questioning of, like, am I good enough? And that question definitely was there in those 2 years when I was trying to do, and it's not an easy question to face. That okay, I am among the average person, and it's fine. It's nothing wrong being average person. You don't have to be extraordinary all the time. But that it's not that sensibility comes only with age. I think at that time that doesn't exist. So this is the crisis at that time. So yeah, so that was, so I don't think it was that charted out. Did I answer your first question partly? Yeah. Yeah. The second question is, I think I don't think it's important to have students' interests held together all the time. I think it's important for learning to go through the pains of learning. Learning is a painful process. And I think students should go through that pain. I don't think that students should be excited all the time about the science. I don't believe in that kind of science anyway. Science is a drudgery. Science has painful parts. And students at the school level also should realize those parts. So I'm not worried about students being interested all the time in my classroom. What I'm worried about is that if they're losing the connection with me, the only reason why students will go through the pains of collecting data for 100 times, if for the sake of conversation and discussion and evidence, is on because that student has a connection with me, and that student said, okay, fine, if Anagh is saying, maybe let me try. At the school level, that connection makes a difference. So if that connection is lost, then I'll be worried. If interest is lost, it's okay. Once in a while, every student can't have interest all the time, so it's okay. So that would be the case, I would think.
Thank you.
Testa, may I ask one?
Sure, go ahead, Narmada.
And so during your PhD, you realized that you like to teach. But if you hadn't, would you still have considered quitting and going in search of the next stage in life?
I think I would have, because I was in a situation where I don't think I could have continued in the PhD program. If not quit completely, I would have to take a break, if that would have been feasible. Yeah, I think I would have, but that would be also mean that I was unknowingly, I was sure about I will not go hungry. I think that would have been, because of that, it would have been easier to decide that I can quit. But most likely I would have, because I don't think I was practically not doing any work on my project. I was doing everything else. So continuing wouldn't have helped to anyone, for sure.
I guess these days there are more avenues for outreach, but probably you were doing a PhD, there were no such avenues. I think
there were not many. Teaching was the only possible way to go.
The offices of communication are cropping up in all institutes. I think that really helps for those who are interested in connecting with the outside world.
But I am not sure whether those institutes are open for. So one of the things which I feel it makes the decision making harder is that the master's level education somehow is not considered good enough for being able to do communications job. Most of the advertisement which I see now for the communications require little more than master's level experience, I think. And also on most of the master's programs in country don't equip people with good communication skills. Not that PhD programs do it, but by nature of the programs, you are forced to talk much more than at a master's level. Talk or present or write, which avenues are much lesser for master's level. So especially for the communications part, I think it might not be that. I don't think it's still easy. If I had not had net clearance, which allowed me to teach in a college, if I had not cleared that, I don't think it would be easy for me to, because I didn't have B.Ed at that time either. I did B.Ed afterwards.
Okay.
So
you did a B.Ed
afterwards. So I don't think it's very easy for a master's level, just having a master's degree on paper, to find alternative if you don't have possibility avenues of teaching. Or because I don't think that's that easy. But of course there are, that doesn't mean you should just continue doing PhD because there are no other avenues. If there are enough, if you plan your skill development slightly earlier than what I did, it might make it easier to transit from during the PhD. But it's much easier to
places like sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying it's much easier to quit academia after PhD in terms of finding alternate avenues for utilizing your skill set, what you gathered till that point in age, than just after masters. That's all.
Because in the Office of Communications at IISc today, we ask PhD students to consider doing an internship with us.
So something like that would, something like that would definitely give them a flavor. Or even if there is a undergraduate visiting teaching program available for fourth year PhD students who wants to give it a, they have to design a course, but they can't just like take one class. That doesn't help. To allow them to design 2-week course and execute the 2-week course for undergraduate program, that such programs might give them a confidence. Okay, I can do this. I want to do this. It's a real life experience of being in a teaching position, which allows you to see much more clearly. You see yourself to do PhD and continue after that as a teacher. Because there's also that gap, by the way, which exists, that after you finish PhD, I don't think it's easy for people to start teaching in school teaching. It is looked down upon. And generally, school teachers are looked down upon in their life, as if people don't. The assumption is people who don't do anything well are doing school teaching. So that stigma also exists. But I think it has a value for a PhD completed person also to teach at school level, because it's a very different experience as what you get for it as a teacher. So
if no one has any question, I just have a small question to ask Anagh.
yeah, sure.
Maybe it's not within the scope of this session, but I wanted to know your thoughts on most of the times the general feeling is that research and teaching should go hand in hand, and how much research component should be involved in teaching. I wanted to know your thoughts on
that. Teaching at what level? At a PhD program course level, master's level, undergraduate level, or a school level?
General, general teaching.
So I think, I think the assumption there is that a researcher is a good teacher, and I don't know whether that's necessarily true at any level. There are some researchers who happen to be good teachers, but it's not necessary that just because somebody is a good researcher also be a good teacher. And the skill set needed for being an effective teacher, I'm saying effective teacher, are not necessarily developed during a research career. So I don't know if I would say other way around. If there is an effective teacher, can we encourage an effective teacher to do some research either with the students, ideally with the students, which might work, because then your focus is on teaching than the research. That's what I think. But right. I don't, as I said, I don't have enough experience in research, but based on the researchers I have seen as a teachers, it just happened to be a decent teacher, a good researcher happened to be a decent teacher is an accident. It's not by design.
Right.
But effective teachers can be designed by design. So you can work systematically to become an effective teacher, like you can work systematically to become an effective researcher. But I don't think just because you're a good teacher becomes good researcher, or vice versa. And I would rather prefer having a good effective teacher who can do research rather than effective research who have to teach without necessarily being the skill set developed in that researcher.
True.
Yeah. But again, I don't know whether I'm the right person to say those things. But yeah. Because I'm not a researcher for sure. So,
but you're a teacher.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying from teacher's point of view, I think it's better to develop systematically as a teacher.
Yeah.
Than saying, and I think we need more teachers than more researchers.
True.
Like at all levels.
Yeah.
At all levels.
Yeah.
So otherwise, the situation is not because it's going to be chicken and egg problem. We will not get good researchers in life in long run if we don't have good teachers before for undergraduate, postgraduate, and school level.
Right.
So,
is there any more question? Anybody would like to ask any question? Okay, then Anagh, shall we call it a day?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Anagh, for speaking to us so candidly, and it was fascinating having a conversation with you. And we hope to have many more interaction in future with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anagh. Thank you so much for
Thanks for the
accepting my
opportunity.
invitation. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.